Good morning, and thank you very much for the opportunity to present this interesting topic in your conference. My name is Miguel Carvalho Branch. I'm a PhD candidate in Portugal, and the topic I'm bringing you today is about the strange legacy of the classical antiquity in Final Fantasy, more specifically in Final Fantasy items. So, first of all, what is Final Fantasy? I assume that most people in the audience, at least they know video games. They may not have played a lot of video games, but they know them. So, Final Fantasy is basically a collection of video games from Japan. Sorry, is a collection of video games from Japan that started in 1987 and that continues to this day. There are many games, over 15 right now. Some are sequels, some are spin-offs, but what matters is that these games, the story between these games, is not a continuous story. They have some changes from game to game. The story changes, but there are some resemblances in those games. For example, there are common monsters in those games. There are items that appear in many of those games and things like those. So one day, this presentation has to start with why I decided to present it. One day I was simply playing one of the games and fought these two enemies that you can see in the image. They are Enkidu and Gilgamesh. I had been reading the Epic of Gilgamesh in that same day and noticed that Enkidu was using against my characters a set of attacks that he mentioned that the Epic of Gilgamesh mentions too. And this led me to investigate what other elements of classical antiquity, what other elements of the past, what other elements from our culture, our Western and Eastern culture too, appeared in those games. Now, there are many connections when it comes down to the monsters, but what we want to know today is connections regarding the items. I'm going to present some items in the games that are especially interesting for our presentation. For example, they have this staff called Abraxas that appears in 3 of the games. And in one of them, they define the item with the following flavor text. This weapon was designed to signify its wielder's mastery of astrology and numerology. This is clearly an allusion to Abraxas, the deity in the antiquity, very connected with magic and magical papyri and all that. Now, we all know, if we are in a conference of classics, we all know the Aegisth of Zeus and of Athena. This appears in many games. This appears in, if I'm not wrong, in 13 different games. And in those games, its main feature is that it can protect your heroes against petrification. And this must remind us of the myth of Medusa, how Medusa was killed and how her head was eventually added to the shield of Athena and to the bosom too of Athena. Now, regarding Cassandra, we all know Cassandra as one of the daughters of the King Priam of Troy. Now, this Cassandra's hearing appears in just one game, but it slightly increases the magic of your heroes. Is this the same Cassandra? I'm always a bit unsure about this, but it is certainly possible that there is a connection here. Because in the same game, there is an item called Letty Water, water from the river Letty. And this erases all positive status effects on your characters. Basically, if they are being affected by something positive, that change of character is erased. Obviously, this is a very noteworthy reference to the Lethe River of Greek mythology, where people use, most known as the river of forgetfulness. Now, also in the same game, there is an item, a sword called Lex Talionis. We all know what Lex Talionis means. What I could not find is why this name was given in the game. What I can tell you is that in Final Fantasy X and in Final Fantasy XI, many items have Latin names and names from the antiquity that have absolutely nothing to do with their powers and their special abilities. Now, another one from the same game is a kind of armor called Tempus Fugit. This increases the speed of your characters. Obviously, this is connected to the idea of time flying, of time running from our lives very quickly. So it is possible there is this relationship. A much more interesting one comes from Final Fantasy X, and it is a lance called Thanatos Lance. Why does it have this name? Because it can instantly kill some of your enemies when you attack them with this lance. Obviously, this is connected with the god of the date, or with the deity of death in Greek mythology. The last one of the main items I'm going to present you now is called Zeus's Rat. It appears in 3 of the games, and when you use it in a battle, it uses a lightning-based attack on enemies. Now, this could be just a name, but then there is a much more powerful item called Heavenly Wrath, which does even more damage, and this may be a potential allusion to the fact that Zeus is an old god. Heavenly Wrath may be a very tacit reference to God himself, or to some kind of perhaps some kind of reference to an even bigger wrath than Zeus's own. Now, I provide here some more examples of items in the Final Fantasy series that take us back to the Classical Antiquity, and especially to Greek mythology. For example, that Bacchus's wine increases people's strengths. There is also um, an item called Gaia Drum that damages the enemies through earthquakes, obviously referencing the goddess of the earth. Also another interesting example is an item called Galenus, obviously over the gallon, over the doctor we know, that increases the cure potency of your characters. A curious element is ADC's helm, appears in 2 games, which has no powers. This could cause invisibility, like in the myths from Classical Antiquity, but in the games it does nothing like that. Is it? So maybe it's just the name. This occurs sometimes. Maybe they just use the name, like in the case of Annibal's sword. Obviously, Annibal Barca does not appear in the games, so this is just a name. Let me give you some more examples. There are some items collected, some items related to Lamia, basically to the monster from Greek mythology, the Lamia, and usually those items cause confusion when used. There's also the Medusa arrow. What this does is that, the Medusa arrow causes petrification in enemies. There's also an item named Oversoul, and for example, another one called Mulsum. In the game, players can create the Mulsum like the Romans used to make it. They have to join together the required ingredients and they can create it. So this is basically it. I investigated this a few years ago. I would like to present you much more information, but for reasons of time, it is not possible right now. So thank you very much for attending, and thank you very much for your time and for watching this presentation.